respectful conversations with people who disagree. Hey, Anonymous Joe, you're talking with Secular Rarity and Cross Examiner. How are you?
Good, good. You could say that's the question. There's also a very practical thing I'd love to be able to explain to someone.
Yeah, get it in real quick.
So Carl Sagan's dragon in the garage example, I found it mind-blowing the first time I heard it. And Sam Harris or Richard Dawkins' example of where if you have a stroke and lose part of your brain ability and then another stroke and then another stroke, you're gradually losing your ability. But then if you destroy the whole brain, you get it all back in the afterlife. I also found that mind-blowing. But when I have said it to a friend who is otherwise sympathetic and understanding of how I'm no longer believing and doesn't really believe much himself, he gets offended and calls it stupid. And I don't know what I'm missing. And like, to me, I can't articulate why those examples blow my mind to help other people benefit from it.
Yeah. So there's one thing that comes to my mind in this moment, and it's a quote from Daniel Dennett. And I've said it before, maybe not on an ACA show, but on some others. I don't remember. I say too much stuff into this microphone, honestly. But the quote from Dennett is that there's just simply no kind way to tell someone that they've devoted their life to a falsehood, right? And I probably have it a little bit wrong, but yeah, I think that sentiment is one that makes sense to me, right? Which is, for a lot of people, they really, really tie their sense of identity to their belief, their religion, right? And so even if you are as compassionate and as understanding and as empathetic as you can possibly be, at the end of the day, they will always take anything in that vein as you directly attacking them. And that, that sucks. That sucks that that's the case. But I do understand it, and I empathize with people. For me personally, one of the things that I really, really stress, and I try to, bring up as much as freaking possible, is there is a massive difference between the belief and the believer, right? There's a massive difference between Islam and Muslims, right? In fact, I would just pretty much cross the board say one of the big differences is that like 90 some odd percent of the time, the believers are better than their beliefs, right? Like the reason that, we don't have all these Christians out there doing what the book says and slaughtering people and what's not is because those humans are just actually better than that atrocious belief, and I think focusing on that and really trying to explain, even in casual conversations with buddies or relatives or something, that you absolutely are not equating the two, that you are 100% separating these groups and saying, look, hang on a second here, friend. You're saying that there's no difference between the person and their belief. And what I'm saying is there is a difference. Like, yeah, I get that you're Christian, but you're also a human. You're also a person, and I can separate those two. And I can say you're still a good person, even if I think that, you've accepted some really bad things for bad reasons, right? It's not always going to work though, man. I'll just be honest with you, Anonymous Joe. And I kind of feel, kind of like when we were talking with Alex just a minute ago, where it's like, yeah, unfortunately, man, there's kind of a bit of a bummer side to this too, which is like even the best intentioned of folks, the most compassionate of folks, saying things in the nicest way they possibly can, are sometimes still going to piss people off with this topic because a lot of people take it very, very close to heart. But I very much value respectful conversations with people who disagree. And I think that if you maintain that always in front of you, always the thing that you are progressing forward, and striving towards, I think more often than not, you are going to find that you do have better conversations. As opposed to just walking through the door thinking like, I'm getting ready to show up these believers. Suck it, Christians. Here I come. Like I don't feel like that method is often as effective when it comes towards a lot of our goals. But let me kick it over to Cross Examiner real quick, Anonymous Joe, and then we'll get your thoughts here. Okay.
Well, I don't know. That approach is pretty impressive if you could pull it off. I just can't pull that off.
Yeah.
I agree with what SR is saying. I think that it's a form of a sunk cost fallacy that people commit, that, oh, I'm so invested in this that I can't back out now. And psychological study after psychological study shows that people are less likely to change their mind when presented the same evidence, the same possibly counterfactual evidence, if they have already previously verbalized a position on it. So if I've come out and I said, this is my life, this is what I believe, I'm now less likely, psychologically speaking, to withdraw that statement, even if I'm presented with evidence that would have convinced me if I had stayed silent. There's a bunch of stuff in that area. So I don't think you're dealing with somebody who's irrational or unusual. I think that you're dealing with a human being. My approach is always to have an honest conversation, a meta conversation about conversations, not talk about the issue, but talk about conversations, and say, hey, I find we talk about this from time to time. I respect you. I respect your opinion. I think you're a great person, but I might disagree with you on a few things, and you obviously might disagree with me. Is it okay if we continue to have those conversations? Because I don't want you to feel like I'm attacking you. I genuinely am curious. I'm not convinced. I want to know why you are. And just have that conversation and say, honestly, if it makes you uncomfortable, we could just talk about sports or whatever else. We don't have to talk about it. And if you have that type of relationship and you can have that conversation, you may end up with, yeah, we agree to never talk about it, or we agree that he's going to chill out a little bit on taking offense or getting his back up when you say, well, I'm unconvinced by this thing that you are convinced by. Why is that? So I don't know if that helps, but that's how I tend to approach it.
I really like that approach, Cross Examiner. I just want to say I really do think that genuine curiosity, that genuine showing somebody like, hey, I really am just here for the conversation. I just want to know what your thoughts are. I don't agree, but I really want to understand where you're coming from. I do think that's powerful. So yeah, I love that you brought that up. Anonymous Joe, I know we've shouted a bunch, but I'm going to give you the mic back. And give us your thoughts here, and then we're going to go on to our last caller.
Okay, I hear you, and thank you. Yeah, what you're saying makes sense. It's a little frustrating that he isn't really a believer, but his mother is a believer, and he seems to get defensive on his mother's behalf. And it's just weird because I thought I was just having a fun conversation, and when he, said that I was speaking hatefully, I'm like, no, it's just, I just find it mind blowing. It tickles my brain. And he's like, yeah, right. And I had no idea where it was coming from. But in the end, I just said, well, when I was a believer, I had sacred subjects that I didn't like to always be challenged. And I guess this is one of those sacred subjects for you. We don't, have, but I don't know what the next one will be that might offend them.
Sure. And yeah, totally understand that. And again, not saying that this method works, all the time for every single person, but just what Cross Examiner was just saying, I think, and this is actually just something in general too. I don't think we do, a great job when it comes to us just checking in with the people that we're talking with regularly, even when it's a friend and like, we're not actually talking about like anything that seems controversial or particularly spicy or anything, but like, sometimes it's just a really good idea to just stop your train of thought for just a second. Doesn't mean we can't pick it back up, doesn't mean it's not valid, doesn't mean you don't have great supporting evidence, all that stuff, but just stop for just a second, take a step back, and just check in with the person that we're talking to, and just be like, hey, is this bothering you? Like, if I keep talking about this, or is this like upsetting you? Like, does this make you angry or sad, or like, does this bring up thoughts or something? Just taking a few seconds to just be a human, right? You know, this isn't anything magical. This isn't anything that's exclusive to some religion or some divine practice or anything. This is just us being people going, holy shit, like maybe I should see if they're okay, you know? Like I just haven't checked in with them in a while, you know? And maybe that'll help. That'll help you kind of figure out where those minefields are before you just accidentally step on one, you know? Because you ask that and then the person kind of maybe, you know, okay, maybe their guard was getting a little up, but now that you've kind of taken a step back and checked in, maybe it drops their guard a little bit. Or maybe it just raises it all the freaking way up. And, but they're just so much more comfortable with saying, hey, actually, we are approaching something that I really don't want to talk about, you know? Um, so yeah, maybe that's just something to kind of throw in every so often. Just exactly what Cross Examiner said. Just check in and just be like, hey, you know, if this is something that's upsetting you, we don't have to talk about it, you know. Or even offer it to them the other way. Say, hey, Bill, throw some questions at me, man. I love to be asked stuff, you know? Like I just want to hear what people have to say, you know? So maybe some of that helps, maybe it doesn't, Joe. But either way, I like taking these calls because I think you know, we do still have a lot of room in the atheist space and the non-religious side of it, to have some good answers to this stuff. And it can be difficult. It can be difficult when you're surrounded by religious people to know exactly how to navigate these situations. Again, man, I'll remind you, we got all these wonderful groups, these fan run Facebooks, the fan run Discord and stuff. So come hang out with us there too, man. And thank you so much, Joe,
Yeah.
for giving us a call. I know we were short, but hopefully we at least touched on a little bit there.